On Friday, July 19th, 1991, 12-year-old Jared Michael Negrete disappeared while on a hike with his Boy Scout group on Mount San Gorgonio in the San Bernardino National Forest located in California. His Boy Scout group consisted of one leader and 6 Boy Scouts, so there were 7 of them total. So essentially, it was just 1 adult and 6 children. Around 6 p.m., his Boy Scout group was hiking to the summit of the mountain, but Jared was lagging behind. It seemed that he was finding it hard to keep up with the group and eventually became separated from them entirely. A separate group of hikers saw Jared alone, and according to this group, they saw him shortcutting the switchbacks on his way down the trail. They told him to stick to the trail and to stop doing that because it could be dangerous. For those needing clarification like I did, a switchback is a trail that leads up a steep incline, be it a hill or a mountain, and is in a zigzag pattern instead of a straight line. Shortcutting a switchback is considered bad trail manners because it kills nearby plants and vegetation. It also loosens the surrounding soil, creating a new trail that either goes straight up or straight down, which will in time get bigger and bigger, and eventually it will hollow out from erosion. Once the separate group of hikers reached the summit of the mountain, they alerted Jared's scout leader, who was already there with the 5 other scouts. The scout leader stated that he would collect Jared once the group descended down. One report stated that since Jared was struggling to keep up with them, he was told to sit and wait on the trail while the group summited. He would rejoin them on their way back down. Another report that I read stated that Jared had become separated from his group, and it wasn't discovered until the group had actually summited the mountain. It was assumed that he ended up on the wrong trail somehow and got lost. I'm unsure which report was accurate. I understand that the group was probably excited to reach the top of the mountain and didn't want one person holding 6 others back from achieving that. And that would have been totally fine if we were talking about a group of adults, but Jared was only 12 years old. He should have under no circumstances been left by himself. If he indeed was told to wait on the trail while the group summited, that was a very bad move on the part of the troop leader. It could be argued that having only 1 adult with a group of 6 kids was asking for trouble. Regardless of the circumstances, whether Jared had become separated from his group by accident, or if he was having trouble keeping up and was told, hey, you know what, sit down, take a breather, we're going to summit the mountain and then we're going to head back down and get you on the way back. The end result was the same. Jared disappeared. Once the group headed down the mountain, Jared was nowhere to be found, despite them calling out for him and searching the trails. Once it was evident to the leader that Jared was missing, he and the 5 other scouts headed back to base camp, and then the leader hiked close to 5 miles in the dark to get help. The troop leader finally reached some park rangers around midnight, and this initiated one of the largest search and rescue operations in the park's history. Mount San Gorgonio, or Old Grayback as some call it, is the highest peak in Southern California. Thousands of people visit this mountain and its surrounding wilderness every year for hiking and camping. The day that Jared went missing, the temperature ranged between 65 and 80 degrees, but once it became nighttime, it dropped to the mid to lower 50s. Jared had only been wearing a traditional Boy Scout uniform, so basically just wearing pants and a shirt, and even though the temperatures were chilly at night, it was survivable. Jared was said to have been in good spirits that day and was excited to reach the summit of the mountain so that he could take pictures. In the early hours of Saturday, July 20th, search and rescue teams from nearby counties joined up with park officials. They began searching the 130 square mile vast area of the mountain. The rocky tree-lined terrain only added to their difficulty. After several hours, many more search and rescue teams arrived. There were hundreds of people searching for Jared by sunrise. For 2 days, Jared was searched for by ground as well as by air. It was on the 3rd day of the search that a footprint was found, and it was believed to have been a match to the high-top tennis shoes that Jared wore. This discovery narrowed the search area down to 6 square miles. Near the location of the footprint, some beef jerky and candy wrappers were found, and they were thought to be from Jared. They also discovered Jared's disposable camera. It would have been nice to find out how far from the trail that they found these items, or in what area of the mountain that they found them. Unfortunately, despite my searching, I was unable to find this information. The images from Jared's camera were developed right away. There were 12 in total. Most of these images were of the mountain scenery that Jared had taken while on his hike. However, the final photo left them puzzled. It was an up-close photo of Jared's face showing just his eyes and his nose. This photo was said to have been taken at night after Jared went missing. It was speculated that Jared might have been using the camera's flash to try to navigate his way through the darkness. There were a few images on the camera's roll that showed nothing nothing but complete darkness, which gave credit to this theory. Sadly, this up-close photo of Jared was the last one ever taken. The search went on for many weeks, involving more than 3,000 people, helicopters with infrared technology, horseback riders, and canines, but nothing more was ever found of him. In the end, 45,000 search hours had been put forth to find Jared. Eventually, the searches died down and then ended altogether. 30 years later, and his whereabouts or what happened to him are still unknown. Who was Jared Michael Negrete? He was born September 11th, 1978. He was of Hispanic heritage, living in El Monte, California. He was 12 years old, just 2 months shy of his 13th birthday when he went missing. He was an 8th grader on his first ever overnight hiking camping trip with his Boy Scout group. He was 5'2" in height and weighed around 150 pounds. He had a small birthmark on his right cheek, and he wore glasses with brown plastic rims. He was wearing a traditional Boy Scout uniform, which consisted of green pants and a tan shirt. He was wearing black Pro-Wing high-top tennis shoes. He also carried a backpack, which did include a canteen for water. The big question is, what happened to him? There's definitely a few possibilities. There are many sheer rock walls, as well as steep drop-offs in the area that he disappeared. If he in fact fell off of a cliff, why was his body never found? There are some areas that are very hard to get into at the bottom of these cliffs, and in a lot of these areas, the vegetation is very thick and dense. So if he did fall into one of these areas, his body would have been well hidden. Another possibility is that once he became separated from his group, he ended up on the wrong trail and became lost. And since he was never found, it would be logical to assume that he eventually died, whether it be due to lack of food or exposure to the elements, or both. But if that were the case, he would have been alive for at least a couple days. And this is why I don't think this possibility is what happened, because if he were alive for a couple days, there were several hundreds of people out there looking for him, calling his name. He would have heard somebody, and I'm sure if he heard them calling his name, he would have responded back. That's why I think it's more likely that he ended up falling off of a cliff. Was he attacked by a wild animal? That's always a possibility as well. There are black bears as well as cougars in that area. If he were attacked by an animal, they would have found some blood, they would have found ripped up clothing, drag marks on the ground, or other type of evidence that would be linked to an animal, but they found nothing like that. There's one last possibility. Was he murdered by somebody? Though there was no evidence of foul play, it is possible that someone saw Jared alone and took advantage of the situation. But we still come back to the question of why wasn't his body ever found? That's why this possibility doesn't seem very likely to me. I think a logical conclusion would be that Jared somehow fell off of one of the cliffs, his body was hidden by the thick vegetation, and over time animals scavenged his remains, because that's what they do. This is a very sad case because there's no closure for his parents. They'll never know what happened to their boy. I can only imagine the heartache they must feel. And that is the end of this video. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. If you've enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm really trying to grow this channel, so every subscription means a lot to me. I have so many videos that I'm going to be putting out in the near future, and I already have many on my channel that you might like. So go ahead and take a look. I would really love to know what you thought of this case. What do you think happened to Jared? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have a specific case that you'd like me to cover, let me know. I love to take requests. I want to thank you once again for watching the video. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Stay safe out there, people.